In this video, I'm going to talk about Babylonian fractions. I just wanted to show you this picture, which is from a stone tablet that's about 4,000 years old. And you can see the Babylonian numbers in there. I don't know if you can see it, but right there, that's a 10. And I think those are two ones, the pointing down ones, although it's a little hard to tell now. So that would be, here's the 10, and then here's the two ones. It says it's 42, so I think there's probably a couple more, 3 more 10s that we can't see in there. But that's just amazing. So for their fractions, do you remember the regular numbers? It was base 60. The fractions were also base 60. So if I wanted to make the fraction 1/2, I would have to figure out what over 60 would give me 1/2. So if you think about it, pause the video for a second and think about what over 60 is 1/2. I bet you know. So if you're going to make a fraction over 60, the way that you would probably just know it was 30 over 60, right? Because 30 is half of 60. But you can also think, I'm going to multiply the top and bottom, both of those, by 30. Because if I multiply 2 times 30, then I get 60, right? And then I have to do the top times 30 also, because you have to multiply the top and bottom by the same number. So if I multiply the top by 30, and I get 30 on top. So then what they would do is they would just write 3 10s like this. It's the same as their regular 30. They didn't write it over 60. They would just write 30 like that. So you had to know that you were talking about fractions instead of whole numbers, because there wasn't a fraction bar like we have nowadays. This table shows a whole lot of the Babylonian fractions. So it shows the 1/2 as 30 over 60, like we just got. 1/3 would be 20 over 60. If you think you can think about reducing 20 over 60. You could divide the top and bottom by 10. You get 2 over 6. And 2/6 is the same as 1/3. And then these are some of the other Babylonian fractions, like 1/6 is 10 over 60, so they would write a 10 for 1/6. Let's talk about how you would find a Babylonian fraction that's not on this table. So suppose I asked you to write 2/3 as a Babylonian fraction using Babylonian symbols. What you can do is you can try to think, all right, I want 60 in my denominator, so 3 times what would get me 60? You could also do 60 divided by 3 to figure out 3 times what would get me 60, right? So you can take your calculator and you can say, all right, 60 divided by 3 is 20. So I know that if I take 20 and multiply it top and bottom here. So if I multiply here times 20, and here times 20, 3 times 20 gets me 60. 2 times 20 on the top of the fraction in the numerator gets me 40. Therefore, 40 is how the Babylonians would write the fraction 2/3. And so they would write that as 4 10s like this. And again, they didn't have a fraction bar. They would just write 40. To make fractions like a half, a third, a fifth, a sixth, a 12th was really easy in Babylonian because all of those evenly go into 60. To make fractions besides this, they had to go to the next place value, which was, right? If the first place value is 60, the next place value is 3,600, right? Just like when they did whole numbers, but this is fractions. So to make the fraction 1/8, they would have to add these two fractions together. That sounds kind of weird, but actually we already do that. When we write the decimal 0.25, we mean 2 tenths and 5/100ths. We're adding two fractions together. So play around with the Babylonian fractions a little bit. Um, I ask you a little more complicated one to try out in the project, but for the homework, just try some simple fractions out to get used to it.